Hello and welcome to Full Credit to the News, brought to you by Authentic Collectibles. My name is Andrew Van Leeuwen and I'm joined by Speed Cafe's managing editor, Stefan Bartholomaeus. Stefan, we are in Darwin. We are sitting across from each other. These are my favourite podcasts when we actually get to do it in person. It may be a little echoey in our big Airbnb once again. We do have this problem when we're on site a little bit, but anyway, how good is it to be in Darwin?
It's great, and I'm glad you're here too. I thought for a while you had something better to do. You've just jetted in today, slightly later than usual.
I was a late arrival. I have spent the last few days out in the Bendelby Ranges in your lovely home state of South Australia, doing a bit of test driving of the Ford Ranger Super Duty, which I have to say was a whole lot of fun. That's a pretty cool part. Ever been up that part of your home state there, Stefan?
I haven't. I don't get the same junket invites as you. It's a long way to go for a free jacket that you can't use this weekend.
It wasn't for the jacket. I went there to drive the cars, and very good four-wheel driving. Very good. It's a pretty impressive part of the world, but it did mean a slightly late arrival into Darwin. I haven't even been to the track yet. What was happening out there today?
Well, it was burning hot. Actually, there was a couple of drops of rain just before we left.
It was wet. It felt wet come flying in.
Yeah, so a bit humid out there. But the most spectacular part of the day was the little TV filming session they did with all of the 24 supercars in their Indigenous liveries sitting in the pit lane. We sort of see these trickle out in the days leading up online when the teams send out photos, but to see them all together as a collective is pretty impressive.
Yeah, you'll notice that I was basically offline when most of those were coming in, just left you to mid-season, livery season, all to yourself.
There was no Ford junket, was there? You just went into the desert.
Yeah. All right, let's start with the big news of today, which is that Matt Payne has made a statement about his future. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about, what he's going to do next year. Because we know there's been this interest from General Motors and Team 18 to try and get hold of his services. We know that is something that Matt and his management have shown some interest in. There's been this kind of tug-of-war going on. There was the NASCAR offer that was rejected by the team or blocked by the team, I guess. But we finally have some clarity, and we do believe it is actual clarity on how the next at least year of Matt's career is going to play out, and that's that he's going to stay at Grove Racing. He's going to honour his contract there. What happens beyond that? Well, we probably still think that he is going to move. But I guess, from our side, we'd like the fun of this thing rolling on, well into this year to see what happens. But it does feel like the sensible approach to this from all sides, which is to honour the contract and, keep winning races.
It does feel like the sensible approach, which is kind of why it was surprising. Because this has been dragging on for basically a year now.
Yeah.
It was sort of below the surface for a little bit, and then we sort of lifted the lid on it at the end of last season. And, who approached who first about, obviously, GM wanting to boost their driver stocks, but also some suggestions that Matt's manager, Michael Patrizzi, was sort of shopping him around and saying that he could get out of this 2027 part of the Grove deal. So it still seemed like, as of last week, there was some thought that they could extract themselves in some way. But, this puts a full stop on it. The actual statement where Matt said, I expect to be driving with the team to the end of 2027.
There's always those little linguistics that just make you think,
It did leave the door open slightly, but, we do believe that this is actually not only something to stop the noise about what's going on, but actually this is a firm statement that he will be there next year.
Yeah, it really was an interesting but also pretty good position that Matt really was in, because there might have been this desire to go and tackle this GM project, but when the backstop, like the worst case scenario, is driving for Grove Racing, the form team in supercars right now, potentially winning races and championships, like it was a bit of a win-win, really.
Well, that was the bizarre element of it. Yes, he's looking at the next step in his career, and so we understood that Team 18 would be basically putting a big dollar figure to him to come and drive their supercars, but GM were also dangling some carrots about international opportunities and where that could lead for him in the future. But it would be a step backwards in the short term in terms of leaving one of these Grove cars that are super fast. And full credit to Groves for sticking to their guns on saying, hey, you contracted to us. We brought you through back in 2021. They funded him from Courier Cup to Super 2, promoted him to the main game. And from their side, they have done absolutely everything that they said they were going to do. And they've built the team basically with him to the point where they are a genuine powerhouse. So, there's every chance that Matt can win a championship with them still.
Yeah, I think, from the outside looking in, I agree with you that I like the aspect of this, that a contract has been made to be honoured, because as you pointed out a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, drivers do tend to end up where they want to go, regardless of the contract situation. So I don't have any issue with a team digging their heels in and saying, no, you signed this bit of paper that said you were going to do this thing, and that's what we expect you to do. So, it's just been such an interesting scenario, and I guess it will be interesting to see what happens into next year as well, because we're going to have this conversation again. We're going to take the contract part out of it because we know that he's out of contract at the end of next year, but a lot can happen between now and then as well, and I guess we'll kind of see how it plays out, because imagine if Matt's a two-time Supercars champion by the end of next year.
Well, and the part we don't know is whether there is an actual firm agreement for Matt to go to GM and Team 18, if that's already in place and it was just a matter of putting the timeline contractually.
Yeah.
Well, these things, people have pre-agreements and all this, so I don't know where they're at with that. But I'm sure on the Grove end there would be just that bit of optimism that, hey, we could end up keeping him after all. But it certainly sounds like he's still on the way out.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. A bit of bad luck for David Reynolds this evening at the track to town in terms of his car overheating on the way in. I think the fan failed. They obviously put a fan in the cars to do the track to town. They don't normally run one. But for that bad luck, this is all very good news for David Reynolds, because it's hard to kind of picture a scenario where Team 18, if they do think they have got a hold on Matt Payne for 2028, would be looking to put anyone else in that car, in the Reynolds car, for next year.
Yeah, a one-year assignment is pretty rare. Groves actually did that with Lee Holdsworth when they had to wait a year for Matt Payne to get the right licence to move to the main game. But certainly from the conversations I had today, it sounds like this does as good as lock Dave into that car next year. He's well liked by Snowy River, who are sponsoring that car. The results have still been a bit patchy. It would be a more comfortable conversation for everyone in there if he'd been going a bit better. But that team has taken a little bit of a step forward lately, and there's every chance this weekend that they'll go pretty well.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the night racing here in Darwin, which is set to come into effect next year. The Northern Territory Government and Supercars announced a few days ago that the plan is to run a Friday night race at Hidden Valley, a Saturday twilight race, and then a Sunday day race. I've definitely got some thoughts on this, Stefan. Obviously, it really feels like this is a government-led initiative. They did try this 10 years ago, and it didn't quite get up, but it is something the government seems very keen on. And I've got to be honest, I still just don't fully get it. And I actually just dislike the idea. Like, I think it's a poor decision from the government to push this. And I can sort of see the idea of trying to make the Friday into something more consumable for people, whether they're watching on TV because it's in the evening, or, can come after work to watch at the track or something like this. But to me, governments spend money on events like this. There's lots of reasons why they do that, right? But among these reasons, right near the top, is that you give people a reason to travel to Darwin in the first place, to come to the event, or for the people that aren't at the event, you try and create through TV pictures a want for them to travel to Darwin for the event in the future, or if not to Darwin, if not for the event, just to Darwin. Just paint the picture of what a lovely place this is to come to. And what's the best thing that Darwin can sell the rest of Australia in the middle of June? It's sunshine. It's these bright blue skies. Not rain today, but it's bright blue skies. And I just think the night race, we're going to see an illuminated ribbon of tarmac. We're not going to see the red dirt and the green grass and people in their shorts and shirts sitting on the hill and the blue skies. Like, I just think that that's the marketing. And I don't get why the government wants to move away from that.
Yeah, I was surprised by this, and mainly because, as you referenced, they did have a bit of a dip at this before, where the government and supercars had gotten together and gotten all excited about it and even announced it. And then it was the feedback from those running the pubs and clubs and restaurants in town that put the handbrake straight on it, because they're the ones that benefit from the people being at the racetrack during the day and then in
being
town
in Mitchell Street at night.
So I'm not sure what's changed there for the government, if it's a case of there are different priorities in terms of wanting people to explore further afield during the day and then come to the track at night, or whether it's a case of those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, and the people in there now weren't in there before when this lesson was actually learned.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It is not a full night format. Again, as you reference, it's night Friday and then a bit of twilight and then day. So maybe they'll find the right balance for everybody. Because, I mean, the cars under lights do look spectacular. And it is good to change things up.
I think if you're there, they do. And I think there's certain, like Sydney obviously is a no-brainer to run a night race, because who really needs to see the surrounds of Eastern Creek? Like, it's just, but this is one of those, it was like when they were talking about this on the Gold Coast, and it just made no sense, because it is the beach and the sun and the sand that set that event apart, and you don't want just an illuminated circuit to be the TV pictures. And, you know, like there was actually a quote from someone from the NT government in the release about how this is great for the sunset markets and the pubs and all, and, you know, and it's like, how? People are going to be at the racetrack instead of, like, you're racing when the sun's setting, not, people aren't at the markets. So I don't, like, if I owned a pub on Mitchell Street, I'd be sitting there trying to work out what benefit I get from the fact that all the people that used to pack my pub out, well, not all of them, but a portion of the people that used to pack my pub out on a Friday night are now going to be at the racetrack drinking beer and eating chicken nuggets and chips there instead of being in my restaurant or pub or whatever. And then even on Saturday, you're still closing down the window in which these people can be spending money in the city, because they're going to be at the track longer, even if it's just a twilight race. And you're going to get more tail off from people that go, you know, when the race finishes at 4:30 or 5, that's prime time to hit the town. But if it's an hour or 2 hours later, suddenly there's indecision about whether it's worth going out. And even if they do still go out, you've cut out 2 hours of economic benefit to the city. And that's the bit that just doesn't quite sit right with me.
So maybe this is why they announced it during the middle of State of Origin on a Wednesday night, while all the pubs and clubs were full of people watching State of Origin, hoping that the owners of those places didn't hear the announcement and sort of give their feedback.
Yeah, I know. I don't actually think it's... I know the cars look good under lights, but I don't see it as a massive uplift in the spectator experience either, to be perfectly honest. Like, Darwin always has this day at the races feel to it. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. And I'm not... Yeah.
I couldn't imagine standing outside in that burning 33-degree heat for 3 straight days, though. There is probably an element of that do people really want to do that with their lives these days.
But the venue's set up for that. There's shade there. They've done a lot of work on that sort of stuff. Like, that's not some sort of new problem that's come along for the Darwin Triple Crown. And crowds are generally pretty strong. So, I don't know. Like, I can understand supercars agreeing to do it, because, again, from a TV audience point of view, that Friday night primetime thing is better than trying to have a Friday afternoon race when people are still at work and all that sort of stuff. So I do get it, and obviously the government's come to them and said, can we do this? And they've gone, yeah, of course we can. But to me, the misstep is more on the government side of having an appetite to do this in the first place.
Well, it is good on TV if they light it right.
Yeah.
And so they do have some permanent lighting in there along the front straight, which illuminates the drag strip.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's kind of already sorted. And the rest of it, we believe, will be some temporary lighting. And you remember the first time supercars did SMP under lights, and it was very dodgy. Yeah. Not great for TV, not great for sponsors showing up on race cars, which is one of the first things that the teams think about when this gets announced. So there'll be a bit of cost in all that too, making sure the lighting's good enough.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll see how this plays out. I wouldn't be all that sad if it didn't go ahead, because I just like those Darwin days out there. I think it's
you just like getting to the pub as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's my point. I'm a great case study. Let's move on to the Bathurst fifth event. Now, this is all sort of unfolded while I was out in the desert driving full drive. So what's going on here, Stefan?
Well, we did think this had fallen by the wayside because there was talk a couple of years ago that SRO Australia wanted to take over that dormant fifth Bathurst event date that was left after the Bathurst International turned turtle. Mm-hmm. But it's come roaring back to life, and the Deputy Mayor of Bathurst, Ben Fry, has spoken openly about the fact that they're entertaining a one-off deal for 2027, mm-hmm. which we believe they are in discussions with SRO Australia about, and then they're going to run a process to try to get a permanent deal up for a fifth event there at Bathurst. So,
So what do we think that is? It's an SRO event, obviously.
I would imagine the SRO event in 27, if they get that going, would be basically a litmus test for doing it ongoing, which would be a GT World Challenge Australia round, GT3, and also then the GT4 series as well.
And could be a slot for a GT4 Enduro, which has been talked about a lot.
Yeah, which we've sort of thought that may end up on the Bathurst 12-hour support card. But again, I think this is really driven by the fact that the Bathurst Council is looking for revenue anywhere it can find it right now.
Yeah.
Because a couple of years ago, the conversation was around, well, the Bathurst International didn't work. Any fifth event would need to have a really different flavour. It would need to bring something different to Bathurst than what the existing suite of events do. And it was something they weren't looking to rush into, but now they're pretty openly saying, well, if we can turn $1 out of this, we'll open the gates, which there is that philosophical argument around, is Bathurst this sacred site that needs to be used really sparingly so we don't overfish it, so to speak?
Yep.
Or is just more the merrier at Bathurst?
Let's finish up with a bit of chat about Gen 3 Evo. There is fighter jets flying over our house, by the way, if anyone can
Slightly
actually hear that. Yeah, it's quite distracting. Gen 3 Evo, Stefan. Now, this came out of the conversation that we had with Barclay Nettlefold about what's the next step of the current supercars technical platform. It is something that is not necessarily fully on the table, but at least partially on the table in terms of thinking about what comes next for these Gen 3 cars.
Yeah, and Barclay Nettlefold was talking about 2028 for some changes, and he did say everything is on the table.
Yeah.
But it's not really that far away when you look at it. So,
definitely, yeah.
It's also sort of mixed in with they're still trying to work on some sort of international series. Obviously, when James Warburton was in there, they announced this Asia series plan, which was going to be for 2027 and then got pushed back. But again, there's no real detail on all that.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of work done there on seeing if they could do a batch of Gen 3 cars at a lower cost with a bunch of lower cost components in them. So whether some of that transfers across to what they're doing here, but I just don't expect there to be wholesale change.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I mean, cost has been the bugbear of Gen 3 outside of parity, I guess. So it makes sense that trying to streamline that sort of stuff is the next step that you would take and try and make it a more marketable car. Because that was the whole point, remember, at the start of this, was trying to create a global car that you could actually sell to other series around the world.
Yeah, and 2028 obviously is when they're talking about bringing Gen 3 into Super 2 as well.
Yeah.
So if there are any changes to control components or the rear end of the car or anything like that, it would be a chance for the supercars teams to buy new stuff while having a market for their old stuff too. So I'm sure that's part of the thinking with all of that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I reckon we'll leave it there. We have a few very busy days coming up. We'll be back with our daily podcasts each of the next 3 evenings, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So make sure you stay tuned to this podcast feed for those, and also stay tuned to speedcafe.com because we'll have all the news and race reports and reaction during each of the race days at Hidden Valley.